Okay. Hello, class. It's good to see you today. Welcome to Principles of Microeconomics. And I'm Brian Jackson. My students have always called me Dr. J, but I'm a fairly new economics professor here at Rogers State, having come last year. This is the pinnacle of my career. So I finally, in my old age, got the job I always wanted. So I'm teaching full-time economics. I've taught a lot of other things, but my PhD is in economics after all, so it's kind of my first love amongst the academic disciplines. And so I'm glad to be teaching economics. I'm glad to be teaching at RSU. It's a wonderful school. This is really a nice place, really a nice school. It's a great place to get started. It's also a great place to wind up in your academic journey. So, but at any rate, like I say, my principal domain is teaching economics. So I teach international econ, and I teach some finance. Finance is related to economics, and then I also, on occasion, will be teaching principles of macroeconomics. So at any rate, this is really my bread and butter. I love microeconomic theory, and hope to be able to let a little of that rub off on you this semester. So at any rate, I'm here. Want you to know I'm here to help you succeed in your academic journey. Not everybody is a business student in here. I presume there are some perhaps who are majoring in the arts and so forth. That can happen. You may take this for distributive credit, and that's fine. Economics is, people don't associate it with the social sciences a lot of times, but really it's a social science. So you learn a lot about being really a responsible citizen when you take one of these principles level micro or economics courses. So every time there's a major election, a presidential or midterm election, surveys go out to potential voters, and voters are asked, what do you think are the major political issues confronting the nation? And economics, some sort of economics issue will be at the top, in the top three. We all participate in economics and so forth, but I mean, we may think, well, national security or taking care of the drug problem and so forth, those are at the top of most everyone's list. But certainly when we talk about inflation, we talk about unemployment, we talk about wealth distribution and those things, it seems like everybody cares about that, those things. So, you're learning here, you'll learn a perspective in this course. In fact, you'll learn about competing perspectives on how to solve some of these problems. So it's I think, a wonderful field of study. Everybody does economics. You are an economic actor or agent in one form or another. So, not only are you a citizen, or maybe you're an immigrant to the United States, that's okay, but you're a citizen from somewhere. But beyond that, you're a consumer, okay? You're a worker, you may be a taxpayer. You're doing all of these things. You're a consumer of various goods and services in our economy. You may be, when I mention a producer or an entrepreneur, those things, you need to know at least some microeconomic concepts to be successful. And so we're going to look at how economists weigh out some of these competing solutions to problems. And there's a certain perspective economists have, and I think you'll, by the end of the semester, see that it's a very rational approach, and it oftentimes leads to, the most efficient outcome that can be envisioned. So at any rate, I speak a little bit high level here. I don't mean to make the introduction abstract, but economics is a wonderful field of study. I hope to convince you of that. If not before this hour's over, before the semester's over. So just briefly, I've updated syllabus just before class. I realized there was a little glitch on the syllabus, so I went in there and did a few keystrokes. But at any rate, the syllabus is posted on Blackboard. So you'll want to check that out if you've not already. I've asked everyone, I think I sent out an email and asked you to read the syllabus. But if you've not asked it, certainly by the end of the week, you read the syllabus and send me an email that you have read the syllabus and the syllabus attachment. Okay, so we'll be in good shape if you do so. I'm getting used to these goofy looking glasses here I'm wearing today, but so forgive me for if I hang up on these. But at any rate, I thought we'd take a little look at the syllabus before we get into the course today. You know, the first part of this, I guess, is kind of basic boilerplate stuff. You can read about course objectives and the course description and so forth. This is Econ 2123, okay? And I finally memorized the course numbers for the principles level. At least I finally memorized this is Econ 2123. Don't ask me the course number for the macro course, but I think I know, but since this is being recorded, I'm not going to stick my neck out that far, but I'm being a little facetious. I make poor attempts at humor sometimes. My poor wife has to deal with it. She usually, well, as I say, behind every great man, there's a woman rolling her eyes. Have you ever heard that say? So she rolls her eyes a lot. So at any rate, she would roll her eyes right now when I say I will eventually memorize the course number for Principles of Macroecon. But this is Microecon, make sure you have that straight, and this is 2123. So here's the textbook. Hard copy is what I got. Ideally, everybody would have maybe the loose leaf form or something, but you know, I'm old school. I do know there is this thing called the e-text, and it's there at your fingertips actually when you register for our online homework platform. I'll talk about here in a minute, called Connect. You'll have the e-text available to you. But you can also get the loose leaf form. Let me know if you haven't been successful and you want to get that. We can talk after class. But you do have the e-text available to you on the homework platform. I'm really big on, so I've been teaching for longer than your parents have been alive. But I'm really big on choosing a good textbook and then following the textbook. It seems to me to be a very transparent way to teach a course. There's no question about, you know, the direction of things and so forth. I've cherry-picked a few chapters later in this book that we'll cover, but for the most part, to kick off, we'll, like through three-quarter term of the course, we'll cover like the first 11 chapters of this book, and then we'll get into, like I say, some of the others I've selected. Because I think there is, there's 28 chapters, 29 chapters in this book, so we're by no means going to do all of those. But we'll do over half of those, okay? So this book by McConnell, Brew, and Flynn has been around for a long time. McGraw-Hill's a great publisher. You'll see them here on the side and so forth. The ISBN number is printed on the syllabus. So there's always that approach. You could go out on Amazon, I guess, and get this. By the way, this book is in the 23rd edition. You could probably get, I've got to be careful here what I say, but I'm not going to know if you get a slightly older edition for a lot less money. There's not a whole lot of new material in the 23rd edition. Now that means this book's been around a while. A lot of these books are on 3-year revision cycles. So 23rd edition, I'll do the math. I'll do the math when I get home. Yeah, is it 69? Yeah, 69 years. So the book's been around for a while. Obviously, there's been a lot of updates. Okay, we wouldn't use a book that's frozen in time. It's one of the top 5 economics books in college. No doubt about that. But, and they've updated some examples. In today's, or in chapter 1, when we look at some of the theory in chapter 1, there's an example, there's a model, what's called an economic model. We'll look at what those are in a minute. But I think the model looks at producing robots and something else, I forget, but something that's up to date. In my day, it was guns and butter, okay? So, you know, the concepts are the same, but sometimes the terminology is different. Okay, I'll tell you what, I can read your mind this morning. You're thinking, okay, Dr. J, that's all well and good, because I imagine you think a lot like I did when I was a student. So it's not that I can just read right into your mind, but I would be thinking, okay, how do I get a grade in this course? That's what I cared about on day one. How in the world do I get a grade in this course? Well, it's in the syllabus here at the bottom of page 2 and on the top of page 3. It'll mention that there are 3 unit exams in this course, and there is a homework average in this course. There's 4 components to your grade. Okay, so there's 3 unit exams. A unit is about 5 weeks in length. So at the end of, really our first unit's at the end of the 6th week. At the end of the 6th week, we'll have our first exam. I prefer to call them show-off opportunities instead of exams. Exams sounds threatening. But at any rate, some sort of assessment at the end of the 6th week or thereabouts. And then at the end of the 11th and then the 16th week, we'll call it your final exam. But the final exam there on December, I think it's the 11th, something like that. It's in the syllabus. Will cover the last unit of the course. Okay, so there's 3 unit exams. And then regularly through the course of the semester, I'll be making assignments on Connect. Some of y'all have already done the first assignment. I have posted the first assignment, and that first assignment forces you to register for Connect. How many have done that already? Okay, good. Was there any glitch in registering?
It didn't actually make me register, it just granted me access immediately.
Oh, it did? Okay. All right, it may be, I'll have to check that out. It may be that you did register and it just didn't say anything, since.
Registered for it a couple of semesters ago, so that might have been it.
Okay, it may have. And we have something here called first day access and all that, so it makes it kind of seamless. So, okay, well, good. Anybody else? I saw a few scores. Now, this course has an online audience as well, okay? So must be in the hinterland there. There's some students, because I saw before class, it looked like about 8 people had done the assignment already. So the other 7 must be out there. But while my mind's a little random here, so forgive me. But while I'm thinking of the online students, for their sake and also for your sake, I will be posting the link to these videos, because we're videoing here as we speak today. I'll be posting the link by tomorrow. The link will go on Blackboard, and for both this class and for the online students. So, if hopefully you don't have to miss class, but if you do, you can catch it, you can watch the video. Also, it's good for if you're an insomniac, can't sleep at night, watch one of Dr. J's videos, put you to sleep just like that, I'm sure. So I've been told. So anyway, and you can't get enough economics anyway, right? I mean, learn it subliminally. I never could say that word, subliminally. If you have to, just put it on play and put your head on a pillow, and when you wake up, you'll be an economist. So that's one way. Doesn't hurt, I guess. I guess it doesn't. So again, there's 4 components to your grade. Each are of equal weight, which means there's 25% weight attached to each of those 4 components. So I basically take 4 numbers. One's an average of your homework, by the way. So I mentioned in the syllabus that I'll take the points you earn on the homework and divide by the points possible for the semester. That's the way you want to compute it. Sometimes Connect will do it differently. Okay? In other words, don't mean to digress too much here, but if I have a 20-point assignment and a 10-point assignment, Connect sometimes will just average those two, add them up, add your scores, your percentage scores. So you got 80% and 70%, they'll say you got a 75%. But see, it should weight the 20% more. So I do that. This is how, and I'll keep you apprised of your average, your position in the class. But basically, your running average on your homework through the course of the semester will be computed this way. It'll be points earned, total points earned divided by total points possible. Okay, and then multiply by 100 to make it a percent. That's 1/4 of your grade. The other 3 exams each are 1/4. So basically, at the end of the semester, I take 4 numbers, add them up, divide by 4. Keeps it nice and simple. It's easy to remember for me. And I do it for your benefit too, but it helps me a lot. It keeps it simple. The exam dates are in the syllabus. I think our first one is Friday, September 26th. I chose Friday. The first 2 exams are on a Friday. That seems to be a good exam day. We can kind of conclude the week and then go into new material there on the weekend. I'll be posting new material afterwards. Your final exam, it looks like here in this course, is in the syllabus. I'm not saying because I try not to date our lectures too much. Might use this lecture again down the road. And December the 11th would be on a different day of the week than it is this week. This year, it's on a Thursday. So I like that Thursday. Actually, the final, I'll tell you, the final exam is actually for a regular class like this that does meet Tuesday and Thursday. The final exam is dictated by the university final exam schedule. So that's one of a few things I recall being reminded of last week in faculty meetings is we do have a final exam schedule and we need to adhere to it. Okay, so all lectures will be recorded for asynchronous viewing. If only I could read my writing. Okay, here's typically your homework will be assigned in 3 tranches. Now this first assignment is due like next week, forcing you to get it done, so you have to make sure you're registered and you're up and going with Connect. Okay, so but all the Unit 1 homework will be due, except for that first assignment, will be due on the date of the Unit 1 exam. Okay, typically like at midnight the night before. So you'll want to make sure all your homework is done by then. So, I mean, that gives you a lot of slack and a lot of so forth. I don't micromanage your life, okay? You know, we're in college now. You're adults. Heck, you're old enough to serve the nation in the military. Some do and so forth. I mean, when you can do that, I'm not going to say, hey, have you got your homework done yet? I just think it's something we can do at this level. So your homework for Unit 1 will be due on the eve of, it looks like here, the Unit 1 exam date, September 26th for this semester. Unit 2 homework will be due the evening before the Unit 2 exam and so forth. So, but you know, it could be deceptive since I don't mother you with this. I don't say, you got that Chapter 1 done yet? We're going to be through Chapter 5 by the time that first exam rolls around. So you don't want to be the day before doing Chapter 1 homework, you know, and you got an exam the next day over the first 5 chapters or so. So you want to stay up with it, okay? But it's just kind of a philosophy of mine is you know, my goal is that at the end of the semester, you know certain things, okay? And to the extent I can give you freedom in there, I'm fine with doing that. I'm what they call a laissez-faire economist, right? I believe in free markets. It's just kind of consistent with my philosophy of life too, but it's like freedom's a good thing, okay? And we enjoy freedom in the United States, a lot of freedom, political freedom and economic freedom and so forth. So why not we try to appreciate some in this course as well, to the extent that it allows us to continue to have integrity. Now, that's the other side of this thing, okay? There are boundaries we stay within. The other side is that Dr. J, pretty much as a rule, I speak of myself in the third person. This is Dr. J here. So, Dr. J, as a rule, does not accept late work, okay? So if you come up the night before and you don't have your homework done, I'm sorry, okay? Because there was plenty of slack in there. Also with exams, look at those exam dates and so forth. If you miss an exam, I have a provision, okay? If you miss an exam for about any reason, you can take, there will be available at the end of the semester about final exam week, okay? Maybe right before, I'd like to do it right before final exam week. But there'll be a comprehensive makeup exam you can take. Typically a 50-question multiple choice test, so forth, but it's not easy, okay? Now here's the deal though, okay? So first off, that will plug a missing exam. If you didn't take exam 2, take that, put it right there, okay? Now, there are some constraints on that. I think I'll say in here the highest you can make on that is that's a good question. I forgot to look. There is a maximum score. You would think I would know. I don't know. I'll have to. Maximum score is 80%. Okay, 80%. The maximum score. And it's not curved. So if it's 50 questions, if you get 40 of them right, you can just quit then, I guess. I mean, get 80% of the test, and that's the best you can do. And what's the philosophy there? Well, the philosophy here is that, again, everybody else took the exam, the regular exam, at the appointed time. So to be fair to them, you know, kind of have this built-in penalty a little bit, but it's not so severe that it throws you out of contention for about any grade you want. You can still make an A with an 80% on an exam. Okay. So more detail about that later. Any questions? We'll go on. Enough of it. Too much process there, too much detail. Right? Okay, well, let's talk about it. Economics here a little bit. I mean, that's what we're here for today. I saw here a while back, I was in a grocery store with my wife. By the way, just a little personal info, just a dear wife, her name's Shirley. And between us, I can say that I lost my first wife 10 years ago, but at any rate, I kind of married my childhood sweetheart. I didn't kind of marry her, I did marry her. But anyway, between us, we have 13 grandkids, okay? So I have 13 grandkids. I know I don't look that old, right? No. Thank you. Who said that? Where's my extra credit pen? Okay. Boy, you were quick on that. Very good, very good. But we have 13 grandkids and so forth. At any rate, you know, we go shopping, so forth. Sometimes there'll be grandkids in tow. The other day we were in the dairy aisle, and I looked at this yogurt, and it said Oikos. Have you ever heard of Oikos yogurt? It's all that. I go, wow, sure, look, Oikos. She goes, what? Oikos, that's the Greek word for house. House. Okay? Oikos. That's where we get the word oikonoma or what have you. Economics comes from that word. House management. Really, the word economics comes from the Greek, oikos. It's the first part of it where we get echo, means house. We talk about the other echoes, I guess the ecology or so forth. That's a house, that's the world house and so forth. So in economics, we're talking about ultimately this discipline began with a question, how do you manage a household? Okay, how do you manage a household? Well, you know, a household's going to have income, it's going to have expenses, and you're going to have transfer payments, you're going to have taxes and all these things going on. How do you manage all of that? You may have to hire someone to do your yard work and so forth. Not only are there expenses, there's something called expenditures. We'll talk a little different. We'll talk about that later. There's a difference between those things. And so how do you manage all that? Well, that's the field of economics. And when you're on the level of a household, really today we use the term microeconomics. Microeconomics deals with managing units of the economy, okay? So households and firms and businesses and even industries and so forth. We'll give a more precise definition of microeconomics in a minute. I think I'll go to the PowerPoint slides maybe. I've got some slides here. We'll just look through these just a little bit. I'm usually not a PowerPoint cripple, but I'm going to be today. Can we go to the PowerPoint? Okay. Maybe I need to drag that over. Let's see. Aha. Can y'all see that up there? I don't have my eyes in the back. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so today we introduced chapter 1, a little bit in your text. Economics, chapter 1 is called Limits, Alternatives, and Choices. I've already posted, again, an assignment over chapter 1. There'll be some other things about chapter 1 I'll post here, which will kind of encourage us to get into the reading. I'll tell you, economics, like I say, is a social science, and it started out way back there on a very practical level about doing business within a household and so forth. So we have kind of a broad discipline here. It covers business, if you will, and how businesses and business units work, but also it's a social science, as you're going to see. A nickname for economics, by the way, is called the dismal science. It's a very interesting field, but it's called the dismal science. I'll let you look that up. Maybe next time someone can tell me why is the field called. Someone can tell me next time why is economics called the dismal science. So, but economics, again, is a social science concerned with making optimal choices under conditions of scarcity. All right, right there, they'll tell you why it's called the dismal science. There's a backstory to it, but the word scarcity is there. Do you know, does anyone here have all the money you want? You have all the time you want? Do you have computers you want, or all? Maybe you might, but it's probably not fast enough, big enough, what have you. There's scarcity. We'd have to deal with scarcity in our world. Our world's just not big enough to meet all of our wants. So economic wants exceeds society's productive capacity. And so that's why this is kind of dismal. Now I'll tell you just a moment, the backstory involves a couple of individuals. One, his name was Thomas Malthus. So I'll go ahead and tip my hand here a little bit. Thomas Malthus lived in the 1800s. He was he was an economist, I guess. I mean, he was. But he said, you know, you look at a population growth chart, and it always turns up like this. Have you seen the world population? It looks like a hockey stick, right? He says, that's how population grows. But the ability to grow food, he said, grows linearly. And so he said, the day's going to come when the size of the population is going to outstrip our ability to feed everybody. Now, that's a dismal projection to make. And Thomas Carlyle, who was a Scottish essayist, all that and so forth, he said, that's dismal. So the word stuck. It's called the dismal science because of that. You hear people joke about it. Oh, you study the dismal science. That's a very interesting field to study and so forth. But it turns out, just by the way, that Malthus, at least to this point, hasn't been proven to be correct. Though populations growing this way, our ability to grow food is not confined, is not being restricted to an arithmetic progression. It's turned up as well. Okay, one farmer today can easily feed 100 other people, and that hasn't been the case for too many centuries. But the ability to grow food and to produce other things from the earth has grown, has been able to match population growth. The problem with when you look at the world and you see people don't have enough to eat, it's not that we can't produce the food. A lot of times we're not distributing the food. There's a distribution problem there and so forth, which then that's an economic problem in its own right. But a lot of times it's politics that gets in the way. It's not that we don't have the know-how or the means or the ability to make sure everybody's fed in the world today. So, but at any rate, again, the term stuck, okay? The term dismal science, coined for the discipline you're embarking on here today, kind of stuck. And so when we see the word scarcity here, well, still, we have this problem of none of us have everything we want. Just be honest, right? I mean, I try to elevate my value system and think on things beyond this life and so forth. But still, you know, I could use a bigger house. Heck, I want to move my mother in. So, I mean, you know, it's an expensive proposition, I guess. And so we're dealing with scarcity. We all do. All right, so, but at any rate, that's economics. And we'll talk about how economists look at problems. This is called the economic perspective. Okay, it says it's a viewpoint that envisions individuals and institutions making rational decisions in their own self-interest. And when we talk about rational decisions, we're talking about making decisions you think are beneficial for yourself. And these are things you have to factor in, that there's scarcity. Because there's scarcity, we all have to do with less than we would like to have, so we make choices. Now, you made a choice to be here today, and I'm grateful for that, okay? Thank you for coming to class. You know, I make a mental note. In fact, oh yeah, well, I'm thinking of it. Huh. Would y'all sign this sheet of paper as it comes? So it takes me a while to get organized, so I don't have my roll here. But I do make a mark. So if you're coming to class, I'll tell you what. If you're on the edge with your grade at the end of the semester, though I don't per se make attendance a part of your grade, it will affect. I'll look and say, oh, they were in class. And while I'm thinking of it, I appreciate not only you being here in body, but also in mind. So I welcome engagement and so forth. Back to what I was saying. I appreciate you being here today because guess what? You gave up something to be here today. You gave up something to be here. In fact, you gave up a lot of things to be here today. If you look at all the things you gave up, I don't know if the view's on at this hour, because I haven't watched daytime TV in 30 years. I don't recall in the last 30 years. It's held, but I don't recall watching any Monday through Friday daytime TV. But I've heard of The View, okay, so I know it's a popular show. But whatever it is, I'm being a little silly. You may have given up your favorite television program to be here today. You may have given up time. You may have a relative that came in from outer space to come see you today, right? Or was in town, you know, and they're visiting family and you haven't seen. You may, I don't know what you gave up. I imagine some of you gave up some gasoline and some other things to get here and so forth. But if you look at all the other things, just for a moment, that you could be doing at this hour, from 1 o'clock to 2:15 is when this class meets, by the way, on Tuesday and Thursday. If you look at all the other things you could be doing and you gave up, if you identified the most valuable of all of those you gave up, that's called the opportunity cost of being here today. Okay? If you could attach a value to each one of those things, that's called the opportunity cost. You'll see that on this list here as well. Economists think in terms of opportunity cost. You're going to see this over and over again. Opportunity cost is something that a lot of people out there don't think about. They ought to, but they don't. Accountants don't think about it. Okay, I've taught a lot of accounting, but let me tell you that in an accounting system, you don't generally work with opportunity cost. So what I mean by that, I'll give you an example. Suppose you have a job at the post office and you're making $60,000 a year, and you just quit that job and you go into business for yourself. So you rent some equipment and you're going to do landscaping. Okay, you're going to do landscaping, and so you generate some revenue doing that. Well, look at your equipment rental and the gasoline you used in that equipment and so forth. And if that adds up to $30,000, okay, accountants would say that is your cost for your first year in your new enterprise, $30,000. They use the word expense. $30,000 of cost. But the economist is going to say, wait a minute, you quit your job that was paying $60,000. So the economist is saying you need to consider the opportunity cost as well. Your total cost is the opportunity cost, $60,000, plus the explicit cost, $30,000, $90,000. Now, you'd be surprised how many people don't think in those terms. You say, well, yeah, okay, yeah, that should. So when an economist says your profit is $10 for the year, that's actually a pretty good thing. It wouldn't be for an accountant. Accounting profit, $10 is not very good, but an economist would say, if after you've subtracted all these other costs, this cost of things you gave up, like your job, and you still $10 ahead, you're doing pretty good. So that's how an economist looks at the question of, well, is this new enterprise a good thing or not? If you got a above zero profit, it is. All that's to say, this concept of opportunity cost simply means you consider all of these sometimes hidden, neglected costs in decision making. We'll come back to that, okay, when we look at making choices. There's no free lunch in economics, okay? That sometimes people say that's the number one economic rule. I heard of a person who taught economics on the first day of class. They stood up on the desk in the front of the class and said, okay, everybody remembers this is the fundamental economic rule, no free lunch. Okay, and there's not, okay, because we live in a world of scarcity and so forth. So a lot of times something seems that it's free. So you have a little business, you say, I'm just going to operate that business at home. Gosh, I don't have to pay any rent. So you use a room in your house. Maybe it's a room like I have a room over my garage. I guess I could rent out to someone. But no, I'm going to run my business in that room. Oh, it's free. No, it's not. Because I'm using a resource under my control that I could use otherwise to generate revenue on. That resource is not free. You see, I'm giving up rental income I could earn on that room. Yes.
Part of your rent or whatever you have to pay for your house, part of that a write-off for taxes?
Well, yeah, when you get into what goes on your Schedule C and all that, it gets a little bit more, kind of we're speaking in generalities here, but you're right. I mean, you recognize those as business expenses. So that's why, yes, our tax code is drafted the way it is and so forth. So if you got a room you're devoting to your home-based business, you know, we should, and that's an economically sound way of looking at things, we should consider the cost of using that room, because you could be doing something else with it. If you use your own truck, your own car, you think, well, it's free. I already got a car. I don't have to rent a car. Well, there's still a cost. It's an opportunity cost. So even if it's that, you know, if you weren't driving the car, you wouldn't be wearing it out. Okay? There's still a cost there. Yes, yes, that's right. You don't want to neglect those things. So we're going to look at some practical problems. We're going to look at, well, what should this potential business owner do here? And we're going to make the decision here, should they have their business at home, or should they try to get some office space somewhere and this and that? We're going to be challenged to consider all these different costs, opportunity costs. So, opportunity cost, again, I think it's defined in your book, but just associate opportunity cost with the value of the next best alternative. Okay, the value of the next best alternative that was given up. We also have here the word utility, purposeful behavior. That means you have an outcome in mind here. Purposeful behavior, a lot of times, is conducted to increase utility. So the word utility means satisfaction. Okay, just that's the idea there. That's a term economists use for satisfaction. Okay, we're going to see that a lot. And we'll talk about marginal analysis as well. Marginal analysis. Okay. Marginal. You hear the word marginal. Let me skip down to it here. By the way, here, purposeful behavior, as I said, it has these aspects to it. It's rational self-interest. So, we're not just mindless automatons going through life. Like you look under a microscope, sometimes you see particles dancing around in the light. Call that Brownian motion. That's not. We are actually, you came to class today with a goal in mind. I came to class today with a goal in mind. And it's to do something to better our lot in this world. So rational self-interest is a part of purposeful behavior. And we do purposeful behavior to increase the utility or satisfaction we derive from consuming things. Now the consumer gets satisfaction or utility. Usually that word utility is associated with consumption behavior. Okay? Profit is associated with businesses. Okay? Business. And the idea is you want a desired outcome. Okay, now, how do economists make some of these decisions we'll be doing? They compare marginal benefits with marginal cost. Marginal means extra or additional. That's what it means. So you got, say, a piece of paper like this. The margin is the extra paper around the print. Okay? So if you live on the margin, that means you're kind of on the edge. It's just a term we use. And so here's how economists make decisions, just generally speaking. They don't go back and calculate total cost and compare that with total benefit. Okay? In other words, if you're in business and you have a profit, presumably then, it really has to be the case, the benefits, the revenue that comes into your business exceeded the cost. Okay? So that landscaper, okay? If the landscaper has enough jobs and they bring in $150,000 a year in business and their total cost, including opportunity cost, is $130,000, then they have a $20,000 profit. 150 minus 100, okay? Now, we understand that and so forth. But to make decisions like a landscaper may be asked to take on a new job, maybe to do something for the city or something. A landscaper, if they're smart and an economist, will make that decision about whether to take that job by comparing marginal benefit with marginal cost. Is the additional benefit here for the last few months? They always have this revenue and this cost. Everything's pretty steady. Now I want to take this new job. Does the additional benefit exceed the additional cost? Now you may think that's an easy thing to calculate. If the job is, well, the city says, hey, we'll pay you $1,000 to mow that cemetery outside, on the edge of town, and you figure it's only going to cost like $400 in gas and all that. Yeah, I'll take that job. But that's not thinking like an economist, especially if you're already booked, okay, and if you take that job, that means you got to not do this other job over here you've been doing. See, the marginal benefit in that case and the marginal cost aren't so easy to compute. Perhaps the marginal benefit is, but the marginal cost, hey, you got an additional cost called an opportunity cost. Guess what? When you take this new job, you gave up another job. Okay? That means when we make decisions in economics, we need to compare the marginal benefit with the marginal total cost. Marginal total cost, the addition to our total cost, which includes opportunity cost. So we think on the margin, but we look at all the factors that affect marginal benefit and marginal cost. So you may have an additional cost that's greater than what you realize. It may not just be that $600 in gasoline and wear and tear on your machinery. It may be also that you lose a customer over here. And so, again, those are things we'll be considering as microeconomists. Marginal means the additional or the extra. And I think there's a picture. I want to see if I can find it here real quick. Because today is just introductory. Here, I hope I can find it. There's the graph I'm looking for. When we talk about thinking on the margin, you see this graph here? This is for a large economy, you know, and here's the pizza market in your hometown. And you only have one, maybe you have 2 or 3 pizzerias, okay? And the thing is, guess what? If everybody on Saturday, it's a great football game, and everybody orders a pizza, there may be some peak load pricing involved here. That is to say, wow, everybody wants a pizza today, so you're going to have to pay more for your pizza. So what you oftentimes have is this upward sloping red line here, upward sloping marginal cost curve. You see that? It's upward sloping. So if you look at the horizontal axis, it's quantity of pizza. So if on this particular Saturday there's 100,000 pizzas, then the average cost is $5. But if there's 300,000 ordered, the average cost is $15. Yes, Dr. Evans. Sure, okay, I'm being some, so y'all catch your breath. Okay. Or I'll catch my breath. All right, be right back, class. Oh, you're all right.
Your students in Bartlesville and Pryor can't see you.
Because I thought they had that all worked out.
No, because you have to be in this room.
Well, Sam's got me down here. Sam McCombs. Didn't we work on that out this summer? Or I don't know. I haven't. I told him about.
Oh, did you want to re-record?
Yeah, we're recording this lecture here. I'll tell you what. Can we mollify there? Tell them we're recording this. I'll post the link tonight.
Yeah, tonight.
Tonight I'll post the link, and then we'll figure it out.
Yeah, and then we'll.
But I talked to Sam about it.
But see, that he doesn't know that we broadcast. That's why we have to stay in that room.
Well,
Unless we
I
can
talked
figure
this
out
morning about it.
Sam, he probably doesn't understand that though.
Okay.
That's what we need to do.
Right.
Okay. Yes, I'll have him.
Well, okay. Sure. Well, first day of class issues. So at any rate, so marginal cost is an increasing curve. Okay, a lot of times like this, like that red curve. So if you want to buy a pizza, or if basically if you want to buy a pizza on a Saturday, it's a popular game day. You may have to pay more. So you'll notice here when the quantity of pizza here it increases on the horizontal axis, the cost of making pizzas go up, and so you may have to pay more for that to cover the cost. But guess what? Also, if you start just as an individual, if people eat a lot of pizza, a lot of times the benefit of eating an additional pizza goes down. That's called the marginal benefit. We know this as well, okay? If you think about it just a second, this is very real world. Pizzerias, if they have to make a bunch more pizzas, they have to bring in a lot of temporary workers perhaps. They have to use workers who may do other things. They may have to pay overtime. Make 200,000, 300,000 pizzas, you'll see here on the horizontal axis, the cost for an additional pizza to go out is going to go up. Marginal costs, just for any period of time, say a Saturday here, in this big city here, marginal cost increases with volume. Marginal benefit, a lot of times, decreases. So if you're just an individual here, and you say, hey, we're going to eat pizza today, okay, it generally works this way for you, the consumer. The second slice of pizza is not as good as the first slice. Is that right? You ever eat pizza? Like that first slice is good, right?
It's always better the next day.
That's right. Oh, it's always better the next day? Well, that's true. I like to eat pizza for breakfast, actually, so believe it or not. So if we have some left, but we have the kids over, grandkids over once a month, I order a bunch of pizza, okay? So I think, man, I'm hungry, man, let's eat some. Well, that first slice is really good. The second slice is pretty good. Third slice is not so good. The fourth one I don't want. If you force me to eat it, or the fifth slice, if you force me to eat it, you probably have to take me to the hospital and pump my stomach, right? It's like, I don't want that. So marginal benefit. Now marginal again means the additional unit. The benefit that can be derived from an additional unit consumed goes down with consumption. It goes down. This is marginal costs go up for producers. Okay? I mean, if you got to push it to the wall and make a bunch of pizzas this Saturday, wow, we got to bring in everybody who can just sort of make pizza. They're not very efficient at it, but you got to pay them to make pizzas. The cost per pizza goes up. But the benefit per pizza, additional pizza that is marginal, is going to go down for the consuming public out there. And so if it says 300,000 here, but you can imagine if you had 30,000 people in a town and each one had to eat 10 pizzas, that gets you 300,000 pizzas, right? You got a lot of people at the hospital. So I'm being a little facetious there, but again, we're going to see this over and over again, that the optimal level of production is that which equates marginal benefit with marginal cost. So you see where those two lines intersect right there? That's where marginal benefit equals marginal cost. Now, an economist would say that all the pizzerias, if they could get together in town on that Saturday at the game, they should produce 200,000 pizzas. If they produce less than that, okay, there's still some profit to be had, say 100,000 pizzas, because people out there are benefiting. The marginal benefit exceeds the marginal cost of producing those pizzas. People aren't getting all the pizzas they want. They'll buy more pizzas. Society as a whole could be made better off, and that's where we're going here, maximizing satisfaction for the whole economy, producers and consumers. That'll occur if we produce more than 100,000 pizzas, because that last pizza, the 100,000th pizza, provided more benefit than it cost to produce. We need to shift more resources as an economy toward producing pizzas, because there's a lot of people out there who wanted a pizza, didn't get one, and would gladly buy one at $15 or less. Let me ask you this though. If they all got together and on the morning the pizzerias produced 300,000 pizzas, is that a good thing? No, it's not. They overproduced, didn't they? They're not going to sell all those pizzas. There's a lot of people out there who says, I don't want to buy any more pizzas, and the pizzeria has got them in inventory there and they're just going to go bad. Okay? So there you've overproduced. See, the economist looks this way. They say, hey, we've had several game days. We've learned from the past. It seemed like 200,000 is a good place to kind of operate, but should we increase our output, number of pizzas? Well, you'll do so only if the marginal benefit exceeds the marginal cost. At 100,000 pizzas, the economy is better off if there's more pizzas. But if you go beyond 200,000, you want to back off then. Okay? So if there's 300,000 pizzas, you produce fewer pizzas. Okay, so I'm speaking kind of I don't mean to be too abstract here, but when we talk about, making decisions as an industry or as a consumer or as a producer, we try to equate these two things. You'll see it up there, MB equals MC. That's the most famous rule in microeconomics. So in physics, you got E equals MC squared, right? We've all heard of that. Einstein came up with that, theory of relativity. In microeconomics, it's MB equals MC. You want to produce at a level of output where marginal benefit equals marginal cost. So I wanted to introduce that because these terms that we're defining here today have meaning for us. They have usefulness to us. That term marginal is something you need to think about, and we will be using. Okay, let me skip back up here just a little bit, just to show you a few things here. Okay, so yes. We'll talk about economic models in here. A model is a simplified explanation for how the world works. All right? So I'll just give you an example. I want you to read chapter 1, but these are terms that are important. As the price of gasoline goes up, do people tend to consume more of it or less of it? Very straightforward question, right? Less, right? The price of something goes up, people consume less. For most goods, this is true. It's called the law of demand. Okay? If the price of a good goes up, the quantity demanded, and we're going to look at that, give a little more precision to that, but the quantity of gasoline that people are willing and able to purchase moves in the opposite direction, goes down. That's a model. That's called an economic model. We'll graph that. In fact, that little graph we just looked at of the two lines, the marginal benefit went down. That's a demand curve. Okay, that's really what that is a demand curve. When one variable goes up, the other goes down, you can graph that in 2 dimensions with a downward sloping line. Demand curve slopes downward in this system we'll be working with, just as economic model. There's lots of, and now it's a simplified, as I said, it's a simplified description of how the world works. Because that's true unless, price and quantity demanded for gasoline move in opposite directions. That's true unless something else is going on too. For instance, people's income goes down for some reason. If their income goes down, the price of gasoline may go down, but it doesn't mean people are going to buy more gasoline or willing and able to buy more gasoline. Okay? So there's another factor there we hold constant. Yeah?
I was going to say, with gasoline specifically, there's also like a universal up push for demand due to transportation costs.
Yeah.
You have to buy gasoline to get to work to make money to buy more gasoline.
Oh, well, that's true. In fact, we'll get into something called price elasticities later. I mean, gasoline's kind of an essential thing to have, right? I mean, if you're gonna live, you're gonna use some gasoline, and it affects a lot of things too. So you're absolutely right. We got to start somewhere though in economics. So we say kind of as a general principle for most goods this is the case. In fact, for almost every good this is the case. If the price goes up, the quantity demanded goes down. If your income goes up, for most goods the quantity demanded goes up, will go up, right? If your income went up, wouldn't you buy more flat screen TVs? Yeah, you'd buy more gasoline, so forth. You would. But there are some things now you wouldn't buy more of. There are some things you wouldn't, like, well, black and white TVs, efficiency apartments, compact cars. If your income goes up, you say, well, I'll be glad when I get out of college because my income's going to go up. I'll guarantee you I'll never eat any more ramen noodles. When my income goes up as a college graduate, I'm done with those things, all right? So, for most goods, when your income goes up, you consume more, but not for everything. So we're going to be talking about those, but that's a model, see. We have a certain kind of good called normal goods. Normally it's the case. For most things, if your income goes up, you consume more of those things. But not for everything. Okay. At any rate, so there's this term here called ceteris paribus. Do you see that on the screen? Ceteris paribus. It means other things equal. The other things equal assumption. So when I talked about the law of demand here just a moment ago, I said when the price of gasoline goes up, the amount of gasoline you buy in a period of time, maybe it's a day or a month, will go down. That means the amount you demand. They move in opposite directions. But other things equal. That is, your income hasn't changed. Your income before the price change equals the income after the price change. And that means other things equal. The term is ceteris paribus. That's just a term from the Latin. It means nothing else changed. Okay, so we'll say price and quantity move in opposite direction. Price and quantity demanded move in opposite direction, comma, ceteris paribus. A lot of times we'll abbreviate that CET period, PAR period. So as long as you don't mess with income, as long as you don't mess with taste and preferences and so forth. I mean, as long as there's no news that's come out about how gasoline is destroying the environment or something. As long as everything else is the same, then price of a good and quantity demanded move in opposite directions. So we express that with a graph, and that graph is some downward sloping curve we'll look at later because the two variables move in opposite directions. That's called an economic model. Microeconomics versus macroeconomics. Micro is the study of the individual consumer, firm, or market. That's what microeconomics is. Macroeconomics is the study of the entire economy. So we're talking about what are called major aggregates of the economy. The focus of macroeconomics, just kind of tip our hat to macro here, though we're in a micro class, but the focus of macroeconomics is things like economic growth for the whole economy. Politicians talk about this all the time. Economic growth. The price level, okay? We talk about the price level. In fact, if you're on Social Security, no one here is, even I'm not on Social Security yet, but your compensation or your payment, your transfer payment will be tied to the price level. We have something called the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. It's just a level of prices in the economy. And as that goes up, the government transfers more revenue or more income to you if you're on Social Security. So I mentioned that here. The price level is something that affects the whole economy. Some prices go up, some go down, but on average, what's happening to that average price? That's called the price level. Okay? Inflation. We hear about inflation in the news. We sure do, don't we? Interest rates, you hear about that. Unemployment. Okay? All of these things, tariffs and so forth, these are things that are in the domain of macroeconomics. And so take the other course if you want to learn about that. Okay, positive economics versus normative economics. Positive economics involves statements, economic statements that are factual. It may be true or false. The word I prefer to use here are testable. They're testable. Okay? Now let me give you two examples here, two statements. You tell me the difference here. One of these is a testable. If we raise the income tax rate on the top 10% of wage earners in our country, output will fall. Okay, in other words, we raise the tax rate on the top 10%, national output will fall. The other statement is we shouldn't raise the taxes on the top 10%. It's not right to do so. Okay? Now the first statement's testable. You know that? Now it's kind of hard to perform an experiment in economics. But the idea is we can go back and look at data in the past, and we can see when we've raised taxes, and we can look at other countries and so forth, and we can kind of gather that data and drive a conclusion that says whenever you raise taxes on the top 10%, output will fall. It will not increase. Okay? What have you. But that is a testable statement. It may be true or false. We're in the realm of positive economics there. Positive economics make assertions, typically that are testable. We can test this model that we talked about a while ago. Prices and quantity demanded move in opposite directions. Well, again, quantity demanded, willing and able to buy goods. We can go back and look at lots of goods and say, hey, when the price of gasoline went up in the past, people bought less gasoline. So forth. That's testable. Normative economics, that's like the second statement I made. That's a normative statement. When I said we ought not to, or we ought, or we should. Anytime you hear the word should or ought, you're in the normative realm there. So we talk about normative economics. Okay? These make value assertions. They make assertions based upon your value system. So when you say the government should provide subsidies to young people to go to college, should, that's a value statement. By the way, why does the government help students go to college? Most of us who go to college has some sort of financial aid, right? Why would the government do that? Okay, yes.
If we have higher education, then we can put out more higher level production, so it's bigger economic growth.
Okay, all right. The whole economy benefits, right? So the idea is, what you're explaining there is that when it's an investment, the idea is if the taxpayer helps you get educated, that you'll make a return to that investment over the life of your career. And you'll do more good for society than you would otherwise. You'll do more because you're now educated. Now, so that's the rationale there. So, but when we say the government should help finance public or higher education or provide subsidies for students to go to school, when I use the word should, we're into normative economics, okay? But if I said always in the past, it's been the case that when we increase Stafford loans, Pell Grants, and all that, when we increase that, the economy has ultimately benefited. That's a testable statement. And there you're in the realm of positive economics. Okay, so you see the difference between Now, what do you think we're going to focus on in this class? Positive economics. Okay, normative economics. People differ on whether you should charge interest even for a loan. You know that? Do you know why in the West the banking industry is so developed? So when I say the West, the United States, European countries, and so forth, and Southeast Asia and so forth, we'll include them too, have these big banks because we say, yeah, you should, if you're going to loan somebody, if an organization's going to loan a potential consumer, or an automobile or a house, what have you, some money, they should charge interest. They're going to use, what is interest? Interest is the rental on money for a while. Okay? There's nothing wrong with that. But not all cultures look at it that way. There are cultures here on this planet that say that that's usury and that's wrong. And so you have a different kind of system. The banking system's kind of entirely different in the Middle East. There aren't any big banks in the Middle East outside of certain areas. Why? Because there's a mindset that charging interest is wrong. So I have a different way. There's a different way of encouraging capital formation in the Middle East and so forth. It's more of a venture capital approach. So if you want to start a business, you need some capital to do that. Well, someone will join you in the enterprise. and they'll help fund that, but they're a partner with you. That's a different way. That's a different way of doing things because, again, there's this mindset that interest is wrong. Okay, that's a normative statement. The statement you ought not charge interest is a normative statement, okay? A positive statement would be something like, well, because of the banking industry that charges interest to potential consumers, we have a higher standard of living in the West. So is public assistance to the poor a good thing? All right. If you say we shouldn't provide public assistance to the poor, that's a normative statement. How about the minimum wage law for a second? Might get some debate on that here. Should we have a minimum wage law at all? Most people shake their head. Okay, but is there a downside to it? What if the minimum wage, okay, what if the minimum wage suddenly were $30 an hour? What do you think would happen?
Everything would go up.
Well, everything would go up, yeah. But do you think there'd be, how would that affect the unemployment rate?
The employment rate would probably go higher because a lot of companies wouldn't be able to afford to pay that.
That's right. In fact, that's the argument against raising the minimum wage. It's always that. People say, oh, the minimum wage, gosh, who can live on that? Well, maybe that typical person can't live on the minimum wage. But if you set the minimum wage here, and there are people willing to work for less than the minimum wage, and they can't get a job, they got zero, right? Unless it's given to them. So there's always this, any politician or any member of Congress worth their salt will acknowledge that raising the minimum wage will create unemployment. That is something, now that statement is a positive statement. It's testable. When we've raised the minimum wage rate in the past, it's created more unemployment. The issue is, can we live with that additional unemployment? Okay? So when we look at should we raise the minimum wage, which is a normative statement, when you say, yeah, we should, then you've got in mind that, yeah, some people are going to lose their job, but not that many. And that's where the debate is. And we'll have a way of capturing that cost associated with raising the minimum wage by something called the price elasticity of demand. In that case, it's called wage elasticity. So there's a word I'm going to go ahead and throw in here for a little bit. It's called elasticity. You see it all over the place in microeconomics. It depends on what the price elasticity of labor is. You know, the demand for labor. The demand for labor. So something's very inelastic if it doesn't change much. Okay, I'll guarantee you the demand for brain surgeons is very inelastic. So if a brain surgeon says, well, I want a 10% raise, they're going to get it. They're going to get it. Because if your life is in their hands, someone's going to pay for it. But if you're someone who just sweeps floors at the grocery store, and you come in and say, I want a 10% raise, the boss is apt to say, well, I'm sorry, we don't need you anymore. Their wage is very elastic. Very elastic. The demand for them, we don't need you anymore, really changes with what they demand as compensation. Okay, so these are things we're going to be talking about. Any questions on this? This is just to whet your appetite for microeconomics. I would ask that you read chapter 1, and we're just about out of time. And if you'll do chapter 1, if you'll do that first question, go ahead and do that. Don't let these stack up on you. Again, I'm not going to micromanage your progress in microeconomics. Okay. Y'all have a good day. All right. Thank you.